Here's my garlic that I planted last fall, and I have two different varieties. These are my soft neck garlics, and then down here you can see this is where my hard neck garlic is. And you can tell it's hard neck in the springtime because it puts out these garlic scapes, the little flower stalks that are a secondary way of reproducing. But they take some of the plant energy to turn into that. So if you want a big head of garlic, you need to clip it off so that that energy can go to the base of the plant to make the bulb, to make the head of garlic bigger. But these are really very tasty. I'm gonna turn these into pesto. Welcome back to the Wandering Star Farmhouse. My name is Jeanette, and my family and I moved out onto 6 acres in Indiana about a year ago, and I'm happy you're here with me today. I'm making some pesto. In my family, I make it with chickpeas instead of nuts because I have a son allergic to nuts. So that's what's going on here. A little bit of Parmesan cheese, a decent amount of olive oil, and that makes a great pesto. I went ahead and threw in the rest of this can of chickpeas with the pasta to give it a little more protein, and used some bow ties from our pantry and made a good dinner for tonight. We always like to top it with a little bit more Parmesan cheese at the end just to look attractive. For tonight's dinner, I'm using some cooked ground beef that I already had from my son's graduation party, and we are making a little bit of sloppy joe. So I'm just adding some mustard, Worcestershire sauce, tomato sauce, sugar, and a drizzle of molasses. Let that all cook down till it was heated through and combined, and topped that with some buns from the pantry. I'll admit, I stocked up on some buns before this challenge. For today's dinner, I'm gonna make polenta, and I'm starting with some onions and garlic, and then adding a quart of chicken broth. And you'll see I'm using a box of chicken broth from my pantry because I don't have any fresh made right now or frozen, but I will rectify that by the end of this video. Now what I'm using here instead of polenta is grits. But if you look at the ingredients on this container of grits, it just says white corn. So basically it's a coarse ground cornmeal. And if you can't find ground polenta, then just plain corn grits is a good substitution. So for this recipe, I'm gonna be using some red Russian kale from my garden, and you can see it's just kind of small, but it's big enough to harvest the first few leaves off of it. So we're going to enjoy that. Now I have mushrooms that have been in the fridge, and mushrooms do start to get kind of slimy at a certain point, so you don't want to keep them in your fridge forever, but they do last quite a few weeks. And you'll see I use them in a recipe later in this video as well. I cover this kale up to help steam it and soften it just a little bit more. A little bit of Parmesan cheese in there as well. So it seems like I need to learn to make Parmesan cheese. We end by mixing this all together. Then we serve it with some spaghetti sauce. And my kids like to mix it all the way up together. I like to have it on the side and kind of eat a little bit of this and a little bit of that together. But this is really a favorite recipe of my kids. Tonight for dinner, we're just having hot dogs. And like I said, I bought some buns. I was looking at these condiments, and I have some homemade pickles. I'm growing cabbages right now, and so I can make some more homemade sauerkraut, and you know, ketchup and mustard are something that just might be on my list of things to try and make homemade at some point in the future. The next day for lunch, we used a couple of leftover hot dogs and chopped them up into a pot of pork and beans, and Jeremy just made this cornmeal based skillet bread to go along with them, kind of a quick cornbread done in the skillet like a pancake. Then we always have plenty of milk on hand, so ice cream is just a favorite dessert of ours around here. My kids do like it best when we put it in the freezer for a couple hours after making it to kind of harden it up so we can scoop it. And I figured out a while ago that if I keep ice cream cones on hand, then I have to do less dishes. We have a handful of snacks that we were enjoying from the Homestead right now. Nothing that there's like a ton of, enough for a family meal or something, but peas is one of those things. Peas are just super exciting to go and pick and eat, and the kids all love getting a handful of those every day. The mulberries are coming in. This is how we know that we've been a year on the homestead, because when we first got here on our homestead, the mulberries were ripe and we'd go out every day and pick some, and so we're back at that again. Maybe at some point I can harvest enough to make some jam, but we end up eating a lot of them, so I haven't really had enough at one time to do that yet. Another little snack from the homestead right now is these homegrown radishes. Well, I like the French breakfast radish. They're kind of these long skinny ones with the white tips. And finally, the raspberries are coming in. These raspberries just make my heart so happy because I brought these raspberry starts all from our old house, and I had to leave behind my fruit trees, but I brought some raspberries with me, and those little things just makes my heart so happy. For tonight's dinner, we are just starting with a roux of onions, carrots, and celery, and then we're adding in some more of those mushrooms, and I have some fresh homegrown bok choy from the garden. I'm washing that off real good and then chopping that up to go in here as well. And today with the bok choy, we are making a pot sticker soup. So the soup's all cooked down, and then we add pot stickers at the end, and I'm adding a dollop of kimchi because I eat kimchi now. It's because of all those K-dramas I've been watching. I actually really was looking around for Napa cabbage seeds this year so that I could try and make my own kimchi, but I'd already overspent my seed budget for the spring, so I didn't end up getting any. Here's another fun snack treat that we like to make is peanut butter popcorn, and Jeremy decided to make it into popcorn balls today because then it's extra fun. But we're always adding peanut butter to everything around here, try to get more protein in these kids.
Here's our chicken. It's been, it's in the freezer. Still got a little bit of feathers on it. We'll take care of that, and that's why we're gonna grill it, because then the little hairs and the little feathers, they're all just gonna burn off into the nether.
We have been expanding our flock this spring, and the first group of chicks that we got to expand our flock were olive eggers, and we got a straight run, and that means we ended up with 2 boys and 2 girls. So these are our young olive egger roosters, and they have gotten to basically their full size at this point, and so we harvested them this last week.
So this is the one that Jeanette did. As you can see, it's perfect, just like her. Okay, flip it over. Now we're just gonna kind of like this, and there's lots of, just like that. Break that bone.
It's kind of interesting to see the first investments that we put into the farm this spring starting to pay back. Jeremy is spatchcocking these chickens, and we're going to save the neck bones to make into broth.
There, that worked really good.
Sorry, that was too much.
No, that was probably really good. Good. A little higher,
Lift it up
more.
higher. There we go.
More,
Good.
More. Okay, more. And I got one down then. Okay, so then we'll leave it here for like 5 minutes to crisp this side of the skin, and then we'll flip it over. All right.
To go along with these chickens, I wanted to harvest some broccoli from my garden. So I got my first 3 heads of broccoli from the garden, and they're beautiful and delicious. You can tell broccoli's ready to harvest when the head starts to kind of loosen up a little bit. It's nice and tight at the beginning, and when it starts to loosen up just a little bit, then it's time to harvest it before it starts shooting up and creating the flowers.
But yeah, so we spatchcocked them, we roasted them. As you can see, the juices are running clear. That's hot.
We chopped up the extra chicken the next day and made it into some chicken salad for lunch. I was super excited to find this vegetable chopper peeler at a garage sale the other day, and I will have to talk more about it in another video, but it's been on my wish list for over 10 years. I add salt and pepper, mayonnaise, and a little bit of curry powder to my chicken salad, and I served it with avocados. Avocados, once Once you see them start to go ripe on your counter, then you can put them in the fridge and they'll last a long time in the fridge until you're ready to use them. I have these freezer containers that I like to get for storing broth in the freezer because they're a quart, and that's usually the measurement that I need for making soup or something. So I got 4.5 quarts of stock from the bones and the necks and the feet of these chickens. And we use that this day to make some homemade chili. Thanks for joining me at the farmhouse today. See you again soon.